Okay, today we're going to look at the GCM 1.9 scale wheels. These rims here are all billet aluminum and they're fully machined. You have the option of having Black Anodize as well, and every one of the wheels that you get for the full kit comes with the brake rotor, and they also use an inside ring like this. Now if you buy a spare, the spare will only come with the outside rim and the inside bead ring. So you end up with this perfect size spare. You don't need to have a bead lock inside it. You can slip your tire right over top like this, and you have a spare that looks just as good without having the extra expense of the components. So we're going to look at the assembly today so we can build a full wheel assembly like this. The first thing that you want to do is take your tire, and we're going to use a ProLine flat iron for now, and we're going to insert the inner ring. The inner ring simply fits inside the tire like this, and you can go around it to pop it inside the foam. Make sure that you don't have a piece of foam in behind the beadlock ring. So when you put the rim inside, you want to make sure that the tire itself is actually folded over and fitting right inside the lip on the inner ring. Then we're going to add the rim to the face. When you put the rim face in, it should fit right inside the beadlock ring. And what I like to do is go along the edge like this and just pull out the tire a little bit so that it pops over the edge of the rim. And that makes a really easy visual. You can tell right away if the bead is seated on the rim or not. And that one's ready to go, so we're going to drop the back ring on the back. You can just eyeball the screw holes and make sure that you have them lined up. When you put the back ring on, you do the same trick. Pull out the rim a little bit to make sure that the bead is seated on the outside of the ring lock. And when you've got it assembled where you think the screws are lined up, just like that, then you can just drop in one of the screws. The 3/8 long screws, or 10mm, they get put in first on the back side, and the shorter screws get used on the brake rotor. We're just going to give this a quick assembly here so you can see how it goes. We're putting the screw in only a short way, and one on this side and one on the opposite side. And the reason we're doing that is because you can actually see inside the rim still, right into where the inner ring beadlock is. Now we have two bolted on. I'll try to show you what that looks like. You can still see right inside, and you can tell if the bead is seated in the ring or not, or if it's going to get squished or there's a piece of foam in the way. You get a real nice visual there with the long screws. And then once you have those two in, you can just run those in a little bit on one side, a little bit on the next side, and before you know it, you've got the bead seated down. It's one of those things where you got 8 screws to put in, but you really don't need 8 screws. These rings and these rims will be more than happy to seat and lock your wheel right on there with only 2 or 3 or 4 bolts. You could pick the ones you want to use. We gave you 8 to choose from, so we use 2 rims, 2 bolts there. We usually put another 2 bolts there, and that's more than enough to lock the bead on. There's no way that you can get the tire off of there. So these are really strong. We've used them on the Pitbulls, we've used them on RC 4-wheel drive, we've used them on the ProLines. We've used them on different types of tire sizes and cut down tires from 2.2 to 1.9 and all kinds of stuff. Now, every one of the full kit wheels comes with a brake rotor. This is a 6-bolt rotor we're going to use on the Toyota axles later on. As you can see, there's no hex needed because on the axle there's always a pin to drive the wheel. And we're using the pin right into the brake rotor on these. So when the brake rotor is going on, you simply put it behind the wheel and you line up the center. And you can put in your 1/4-inch bolts right through here, all the way around the outside, 5 or 6 depending on which type style of wheel you have. You'd end up with the 5 bolts like this on the Baja rim, and the brake rotor is attached at the back. So now you just have to assemble this onto the truck and you're done. We're going to use our Cherokee from ProLine here that we've put on an SCX 10 chassis, and the rim. Now you can see the axle without the hex. There's just the pin sticking out, and the brake rotor is going to go right onto the wheel. So we're going to drop that right on, and there we go. We've got it locked right on solid. and it can't move, it can't wiggle. They're nice and tight, and you just add your nut and you've got a real nice set of rims bolted on your axles, ready to go. As you can see by the amount of stud sticking out from the axle, once you put your nut on there, there's just enough threads to get the nut to the bottom, and that makes sure that your wheels are tucked in as best that you can. They fit nice and flush with the body, and that's the setup we have for the GCM 1.9 scale rims.